We now welcome to studio activist Manny Wax, the CEO of the organisation Voice Against Child Sexual Abuse. Manny, thank you so much for being here in studio. Goosebumps listening to these courageous women. It is staggering to think that it took 15 years to get this guilty verdict. You were intimately involved in this case. Your reaction?
I mean, firstly, it's an incredible day for justice. Most people were skeptical, or worse, many people didn't think this day would actually arrive, and here we are sitting about discussing a guilty verdict or verdict. So I'm absolutely elated for these three courageous survivors who went through an arduous process over so many years, fought with such perseverance and dignity, and ultimately they succeeded. They are proof and encouragement for survivors, anyone who was abused, to try to pursue justice, because ultimately we will get even some semblance of justice in the case.
According to reports, this 56-year-old school principal sat motionless in court when the verdict was read out. What has the reaction been like in Australia to what unfolded?
I mean, as someone who attended the hearings, firstly here in Israel, the 75 court hearings just for the extradition to get to Australia, but then also I just returned from Australia last week after sitting inside the courtroom for almost 6 weeks. Just so difficult listening to what these courageous sisters endured. The response has been overwhelming from the Australian Jewish community, but also beyond that. And people are just really happy to see that in these difficult times there is some happy news, positive news, in that justice is seen to be served, and that's critical. At the same time, I think it's important also to remember that one of the three complainants, Nicole, the older sister, all the charges in her case, unfortunately, were not guilty. So my heart really does go out to Nicole, and she's in my thoughts, and really hope that she'll be able to move on in a positive and constructive and a healing kind of way.
Also incredible that the three sisters were content to have their names made public. That is often not the case in situations like this, but it helped their campaign over all these years. Certainly, as you say, incredibly courageous to have to go through the ordeal again in court and relive their ordeal. Incredibly brave. Talk to us about the reaction, though, and the criticism in some circles about what happened in Israel, how Malka Leifer managed to flee to Israel and was protected by certain communities. How is that being received right now as this verdict unfolds?
Firstly, the fact that Malka Leifer was helped to evade justice by the Adass Israel school leadership back in 2008 is a first point that needs to also be examined. And I know there is a great deal of discussion around that now, and myself and others are hopeful that Victoria Police will open this investigation and hopefully hold those to account, because we need deterrence, we need justice, we need accountability. And in terms of what transpired here in Israel, it is absolutely shocking what happened. These brave girls were up against it, not only against the system, but also those in leadership positions who were up supporting Malka Leifer, doing whatever they can, whether it was former Health Minister Yaakov Litzman, who ended up having to be to resign from the Knesset, which is seemingly a paltry payment for something of such magnitude, to try to stop Malka Leifer from being extradited to Australia. But then there were others as well. Rabbi Grossman, a senior rabbi, who offered to assist Leifer as well. So really the girls were up against it. But in spite of all of this, they succeeded. They got Malka Leifer to Australia. She faced justice and was found guilty. But hopefully this will be a learning curve for many people, for countries, for Israel, the way it deals with these types of issues, for Australia in terms of ensuring that people can't evade justice in this kind of way. So there are a lot of lessons learned, but thankfully we are where we are today, and it's an incredible day.
Very briefly, how many years is Malka Leifer likely to get when she is eventually sentenced?
Look, there's going to be the sentencing hearings are going to start at the end of this month. Let's not forget she has been sitting in jail since February 2018, and that came up today in terms of the defence trying to use that she has already sat quite a few years. So I'm sure that will all be taken into consideration. I would be cautious in having too many expectations for much longer than 5 years. She's already served a great deal in these types of cases. Many of us believe that that's nowhere near enough, of course, for many counts of rape and sexual assault, but hopefully we'll see justice till the end.
Manny Wax, the CEO of the organisation Voice Against Child Sexual Abuse, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you,
as we continue to put a spotlight on the fight for justice.